We're going to talk about prayer today, women's prayer, and I have some outlines for you. I thought it helps some people. If it doesn't help you feel more focused better without looking in the list, I'm going to lead you through it. It's just for those that it's helpful. There should be some pen in the middle of the table if you want to follow through. It could also help and make your own notes. Okay. So, as I like to start any of our lectures, I would like to start this one as well. Anything we do and anything I'd like to teach or promote or give over, we have to observe ourselves from what we do and how we do. If it affects us and we become more calm and more happy inside and more able to withhold difficulties when the difficulties come. If it doesn't help, then the methods that I'm giving were either directed in the wrong way or taught in the wrong way or observed in the wrong way. It has to have its effect. So that's the bottom line. The very bottom, observe ourselves after prayers, we're going to talk about it. If we go through everything, and the idea is to learn here, to get the technical concepts here tonight. But at home, when you're going to practice, if you feel you did not change, then there's something wrong with the system. You have to change. You have to become a little bit more lighter inside, a little bit more at ease inside. Externally, we all like to put a show and pretend, and as they say in America, positive thinking, positive talking, positive, and we are brainwashed with the positive, and we become very positive, but inside, not all of us feel positive and tend to operate positive in life. So prayer, what I'm going to do, since we have one class, prayer should be really, should be a course, should be dealt in and should be chewed on a lot of parts of prayer from the textbook, but I'm just going to cover few prayers, which is in the back of the sheet, just to get an idea of what the prayer is. And I'm going to get a little bit historical background, secure a little bit with the text, and get a result and the tools, etc. So at this point, I want to start with historical background. Historically, and obviously I'm talking from the Jewish point of view, right? In Judaism, as we read about prayers, prayer was initially instituted from the heart, from your own words, and it continued for a long time like that. People did not pray from the prayer book, from the Siddur, from the Machzor. People prayed from their own words, and it was very much celebrated and very much accustomed by a lot of people to pray in their own words. They had to get into the mood. In fact, I was reading as I was preparing for this class, people used to take about an hour and a half to get focused into a prayer. And once they're focused, then they opened up their heart, like we used to see back in Russia, open the window, look in the sky, and recite your prayer, from the heart. But I don't know how they did in Jerusalem and how exactly what they opened and what they closed, but the idea was they had to be focused. They have to focus their heart and their mind in order to communicate to God. And the concept of limiting your prayer by a book or by a text, it was looked down at in a lot of communities. It was supposed to be from inside, from you offering your the work of heart. It used to be called the prayer. So, at one point, the prayer, the leaders of the communities understood that it's hard for people to focus in their own words and to relate and to communicate to God with a certain concentration and certain ability to give over. It was hard for many, and they decided to make to record the prayers from the inspired teachers and from inspired leaders, and let that inspiring text will inspire those that will follow and will get inspired as well. So that's where we get, very briefly, the text as a prayer book. It's interesting, looking in the same sources, we find that a woman is not obligated to pray. And it says there in the same source, she is not obligated to pray, it's not a verdict, it's not a commandment, as a result of explanation, because for a woman, by the time she reads a time of prayer, let's say 9, 10 o'clock, she already offered her prayer in her own words to God. She already said thank you to God, she already said, expressed her feelings of seeing her loved ones, the appreciation of waking up, the appreciation of having the ability to walk, talk, look, breathe, etc. Naturally, women back then used to offer prayers much more than men, and in their day-to-day conversation to their kids, to their family members, or to their close friends that were near them, they used to talk very much in the presence of God. And you know what? I used to grow up with the same tendency. My great-grandmother, my both grandmother, great-grandmother, and my mother, all of them got married when they were 16. So when my grandmother wasn't grandmother, she was 36 years old. And my great-grandmother was also not that old. And I was around them. And you know what? I used to hear a lot. She would fix the bed in the morning. There was always in the background offering thanks to God. She would wash face for us. There was always something to do with God. And you know, when I was reading a few days ago, this concept, it's so true. It was in their tongue, on their tongue. Somebody's walking through the house, first they would say, oh, I'm so happy to see you are coming from this and this family. I'm praiseful to see that, you know, may you be blessed, whatnot. And it was always, that's the way the conversations went. So that's what they're saying there. The women were not obligated, because by the time they would reach that focus time, that ability to concentrate, they already offered enough prayers to God. But bottom line is, today and now, talking about laws and halacha in our terminology, we would say that a woman is obligated to daven only for one reason. Only for one reason, and that's actually going to be the goal of our class, because we need to recognize where does everything come from. Everything comes from God, and we need to understand that that's actually one of the reasons. So the concept of understanding that God is the source of all, that's the reason, that's what I wanted to say, the reason why we don't, we try not to give money into hands, we try to put money down so the person could take. The reason for it is to remind ourselves that money comes from God, even though there's a physical source and there's a physical person that gives us, but really it's all up to God. There's two things that's mentioned that we don't give into hands, bread and money, because we tend to be, it's from God, yeah. So a lot of people ask, how come in a textbook there's a lot of points where we say, give us health, give us good produce this year, everyone should be well, and hello, nice to see you. We should get all that we ask for, and we ask not once, we ask three times a day. Basically, all of it is about, most of it is about physical wellness and physical sustenance that we are begging for. And a lot of people say, what exactly are we doing? God is the source of all. God understands what we need much more than we do. So we are 3 times a day, so to speak, oh God, in case you forgot, I just want to remind you, I also need bread. And you know, besides for bread, some vegetables would help. And if not vegetables, health also. It looks like, what are we talking to? How is this possible? And of course, I'm sure you've heard there are many explanations. That number one is we remind ourselves the prayer is for us. Where that we all need today, or possibly will need today, where does this all come from? It's coming from Him. And the ability to humble ourselves in front of Him and understand that He is the source, we offer thanks to Him and gratitude to Him. So that's reason number one. Reason number two for prayer, that we are talking about why do we pray. Reason number two is, it says clearly that all that we pronounce has an effect. And the way we pray, we don't pray with silence. We pray in a way that we move our mouth so we could hear ourselves. Usually people pray just reading, just like you would read an article or you would read a book. You just read it in your own mind. The way we offer prayer, since it's actually, instead of sacrifice that was brought once upon a time, there is an opinion, once the sacrifice stopped, we offer prayer. So it has to be a work of the heart, which means we kick in feelings, the inspiration, the gratitude, the thanks to God. And another point, we actually pronounce words, but pronounce words in a way that we could only hear ourselves. Once we hear, we should get inspired. We should get motivated to pray and to offer that feeling that is being processed through the reading. Another thing that I wanted to say, each word that we say, and that's prayer teaches us, we have to be careful with our words. Each word we pronounce, it says mystically, we create beings, higher beings, angels or energies or whatever you want to call it, by each word. So by us creating certain beings, if it's a word of gratitude, a word of peace, and a word of harmony, and a word of love and respect, etc., these are the beings that are going to surround and protect us throughout the day. If we say it in our own words, it should also be not in a notion of complaint or demand or despair or something along those lines, but firstly and foremost, I don't understand. That bothers me that I don't understand. I would like to understand more this situation. So it should actually, you should be conscious about the fact that your words are creating on higher realms beings, and those beings are going to stand for you, stand in front of you and protect you. There's actually a saying that says we shouldn't walk backwards. Some people are particular not to walk backwards because there's a whole army of beings that surround us from the back, that lead us in our ways, and all those spiritual beings are behind us, and we don't want to bother them. That's the reason, I don't know if you've heard before, we try not to walk backwards and teach kids not to walk, back.
How about we walking backwards after go kids to the Torah?
Because the honor of the Torah is much more higher, and they also in awe in front of the Torah, so they would also be elevated, so to speak. But that's not materially we are bothering them. They are not the physical beings. It's just being aware, bringing it into our consciousness that we are not only what we see. There is much more in this world than what we see, and our words and our thoughts and how much more our doings create and affect our surrounding in a very simple wording, and they create beings around us. And those beings stand and protect us and stop us from certain doings or certain acts. We say, I don't know why I acted that way. We were motivated and moved by those beings. And that all comes from our prayer. Prayer, in fact, mystically, Arizal mentions, prayer has the most, I would say, complex or most real beings that we create. Everything else that we do does create, but they're much more lighter and much more easier to kind of gets distracted from us. Prayer offers those beings that are very secure to us. Is that clear or not so much? Okay. So that's a different level of prayer. So we would say, mentioning that mystical concept of prayer, that it's not so much did I mention among my shopping list the rest, not so primitive and not so limited approach to prayer. And over here, each word, intonation, the state of mind, the state of emotional state of being is much more matters, much more important. If you would read Arizal, the first mystic that established mysticism and Judaism, and he opened a school of all the other school of Kabbalah, he was actually very against that part of explanation that we should just ask God whenever you need. The basic explanation of prayer that says, whenever you need, God is not only your king, he is also defined as your father, you should go and ask. He was very much against that. And he said, you totally misinterpret, to those scholars that interpreted that, you totally misinterpret the prayer. The prayer is not about that whatsoever. The prayer is about creating beings and creating the next reality for this human being, protecting him from whatever he could do. It's totally on a spiritual level, it's totally on the soul level, and he was trying to nag it. We're taking all the possibilities of this class, and we could accept the most lenient or the most basic opinion of prayer, and we accept the mystical one, because we're here to learn and to broaden our approach. The next thing is halakhic opinion. We briefly mentioned the point of why we pray and how often we pray. We are women here, mostly. We're basically discussing why a woman is praying and how is she obligated. She is obligated to pray from her own heart. This is an obligation. She is obligated to communicate and to let it out when she feels pain or discomfort. And number one, to whom she should speak is to God. This is a mitzvah, this is a commandment. When she comes about following today's verdicts of modern rabbis, she would be obligated to pray from the text, because a lot of women cannot gather and focus their feelings and their thoughts, and they should focus their mind on the text, and the text should give them that go-ahead. So the woman is obligated to pray both morning prayer and the afternoon prayer, just so she knows where all that she has comes from, and all that she has or will have has a source, and she's grateful for that source. And this whole mindset for the rest of the day becomes within that prayer that she offered. As they say that morning prayer should last you till afternoon, and then in afternoon you would need a little bit of recharge, and that would be the afternoon prayer. And since woman is already she's not obligated to learn at night, that's why she would not need a little bit of recharge from afternoon to evening. Laundry doing also, you need inspiration, and mopping of the floor also a little of inspiration, but maybe not that much as men. That's why we don't pray at all in the evening. What I want to do is by next two prayers that are on the other side of the page. Yeah, this is for Ola. We only have time to maybe cover two prayers, and I want to give a mystical approach to both of these prayers. These prayers are found in the prayer book, and I know you all speak Russian, but the class is in English, and we can't read in Hebrew because I'm sure some people wouldn't be able to follow in Hebrew, and plus it will take longer time to translate and to read, and I don't want to waste time. So that's why it's in English. So the first prayer we say when we wake up in the morning, and the way it's done, I'm briefly going to go over it. For a woman or a man, when they first wake up in the morning, even if they're planning to go back to sleep, but they clearly understand that they're up, they should sit up in their bed, put their hands together, and we're going to explain later why we put those two hands together. It might remind you other things, but this is what it says, why we put the hands together, and we lower it under our chin, and we lower our head, and we offer this prayer. In Hebrew, it sounds like this: Moide ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shechazarti bi nishmasi, behem lo, and we make a stop. As you could see, there is a stop. Rabba emunasecha. So the point of it is, the hands represent emotions. And emotions, in a prayer, in the sense of a prayer, are much higher than intellect. All the time, while we pray, we want to lower our intellect on a level of emotion. We want to submit our intellect, way of thinking, ideas, concept, control, will, this, it's all in here. We want to feel. During prayer, we want to open up our heart as much as possible. Kick in the feeling of gratitude, love, overwhelming feeling of being blessed. All that sensation we want to kick in while we're praying. So what we do, we submit our thinking to our emotions, and we bow down our head, just a drop. And this is how we offer. In English, it sounds like this: I offer thanks to you, living and eternal King, for you have the mercifully restored my soul within me. And then we pause, because we want to prolong that. Your faithfulness is great. We want to prolong the fact that we are so grateful to His commitment to give us and return us our soul for a long day, for a whole day. That's why we pause at that time. So, as you could see from the first prayer, the whole concept of the prayer is to kick in the recognition that God runs the world. There's a mystical point, explanation behind this whole prayer. It says that when we go to sleep, our neshama, our soul, leaves our body on 160 and goes for a nice walk up in the higher realms. And when it comes, so our body is compared to 160 dead body, it's not alive, so to speak, and we could relate to it. People need to wake up. It takes them longer, they don't hear as well, they don't see, they don't smell, we don't recognize things as when we are awake. So when we are asleep, we are compared as if we are not awake. Mystically speaking, I think it's important to mention, I don't know if you learned that before, if you did, please excuse me. It says there is no such concept in mysticism, in the higher realms, as being either holy or half holy. So you are either with God or you completely without God. There is nothing in between. There is no such concept in between. So holiness or goodness or anything that we could understand, it only to do being next to God or being aware of God. Anything to do with not recognizing or not feeling God, or defined as evil or defined as not good or hard or fearful, this is opposite of God. This is considered as evil in outer realm. So when the soul leaves the body is left in a status of being evil, so to speak. Yeah? And therefore, when the soul comes back into the body in the morning, it has to kick out that opposite of God presence, and it kicks it out from our fingers, and it leaves a little bit of its nature, so to speak, on the tip of our fingers. And it says our body is right now getting recharged from unholy to holy, and from kicking this unholiness out, we get a little bit of leftovers in between our fingers. And the only way to get rid of it is by washing our hands in the morning 3 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We rotate altogether 6 times, and that's how we regain the complete purity. Okay? But that's not that important. Why I was saying this is because even before we wash our hands in the morning, after we get dressed, etc., we still are able to offer that prayer right when we wake up. We still are able to communicate to God and to say, I would like to stay focused at you and be next to you at all times, and please prolong that phase for the rest of the day. I am able to face and talk to Him even when I'm, so to speak, impure. Okay? Now we're going to go to the main prayer of Shema, which is Hear, O Israel. It's a translation in English. And this is the source of all prayers. If we will understand this prayer, we basically will understand why we pray, and every single other prayer that we offer is reflecting this particular one. So over here, I'm also going to explain a mystical approach. I'm not going to go into very kind of word-to-word interpretation, because you could read it anywhere. You could even read it online. The things that I would like to offer, it's hard to find in English, it's hard to find, it's impossible to find in Russian, I don't think. So I'm going to give an interpretation for this prayer, and that gives us an understanding and an appreciation. Why do women pray from the prayer book? Because she's not able to focus in the same way like a prayer book would focus. So the whole concept of Judaism altogether, and it underlines in the prayer as well, is to underline that the unity of God. There is only one God. That means practically there is nothing but Him. All the bad experiences that we go through, all the difficulties, all the hardship, all the misunderstanding, it is also God, and it has to be understood. This is a revelation of God. And the reason why we go through it is to work on our ego, is to fix our character traits. It's also part of education. God wants us to be educated in a certain way. And we need to appreciate the difficulties as the similar way as blessings as well. So there is a unity of God. We cannot select and say, this I would like and this I don't like. I can't stand it. We could wish and we could say, God, please send my way pleasant things on a human level that I could understand. But bottom line, I accept all that you will send. This basically the concept of Judaism. Because if we say, I like this and I don't like that, it becomes selective approach to God, and we do not create the unity of God. So the Shema Yisrael, the Hear, O Israel, shows and tells us that concept of unity of God. But let's just read it in English. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. So the God, mystically, let's just translate. In Hebrew, it's Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu, the God's name Elokeinu, which is God that could be expressed within the nature, and the God who is above nature is actually one God. The God that I appreciate and the God that I don't appreciate is actually one God. And this is what Shema means. Shema means that all that I love in my life and all that I don't love in my life, it actually comes from God. And I actually love it all because I love God. For that, we cover our eyes and we close our eyes, because in order to really feel that reality, we cannot see what we see in front of us. We have to meditate and we have to close our eyes and very briefly kind of submit to this reality that all comes from God. And I agree with that. When we open our eyes, the next thing we say, blessed He, the name of His glory, of His kingdom, forever and ever. This actually, in a lot of stories, what we mentioned before, that ladies used to repeat over again and again throughout the day, they would say that phrase. They would just say throughout the day, whenever they could express their thankfulness to God, they would say, blessed to be His name, of the glory of His kingdom forever and ever. Or just, blessed His name forever and ever. if you would practice saying that in English, bless you, or in Hebrew, you will see how your viewpoints will change, how your approach to life will become much more lighter. You basically, at every time, invite God, invite Him to be your partner, to be with you at all the occasions that you go through. And this phrase we say whispering, and the reason why we say it whispering mystically, because if you look at it, it's not Him, like we mentioned His names in the first pasuk, it's His name. Person doesn't usually need a name for himself. It's for others to call Him, right? His glory, also a person doesn't need glory or honor for himself. When he is by himself, he doesn't need to be honored. He's usually honored by others. His kingdom as well, is by others, forever and ever. So when we open our eyes and we look around and we say, all that I see now is actually an external part of God, that outside of Him, this is not a real God. The separation in this world, good, bad, colors, different characters, good possibilities, not such great possibilities, all that is not the real God. It's an expression of Him. The same like with me, my name only is used for others to call me or to connect to me, but it's not really me. The same with to God. So the next one is just a journey. Besides the fact that there is a text, and this text talks very clearly that you should remember, you should take it close to your heart, you should love God with all your soul, with all your might, with all your being, with all your possessions, with all that you have. You should express love to God. And that's just the basic words that we could relate to. And these words you should command, that I command to you today, shall be upon your heart. And very briefly, why should it be on your heart? Because as we said, heart is not always open. Heart opens when we kick in that inspiration and that motivation, but we should still put upon ourselves those words, because when the heart opens, it just easily goes in. That's why it says, put upon yourself, because heart is not always open. You should teach it to your children, and you should speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk in your road, and when you lie down and when you rise. You should bind them as a sign on your hand and on your head, for remembering between your eyes, and you shall write them upon the doorpost of your house and upon your gates. This is very clearly. It says clearly that what we should do with God's commandments, we should take it very seriously, and we should teach to our children, and we should always, wherever we go and whatever we do, we should keep it around us as a vivid option, so to speak. But really, mystically talking, it talks about the soul journey. So it says like this: you should love your God, because the reality of the soul is only love. Soul does not understand and not comprehend fear. Fear, it's a very human emotion, and fear comes as a lack of the love. So it says like this: soul has its garments, and soul could shine just like a light bulb. But if garments cover the soul, so you could see the light, but not as bright and not as clear. So those garments of our mind, certain concepts and certain rules and regulations, our control, our fears, our education, upbringing, all that limit just purely love God and love Him to endless commitment and always wanting to love God. The reason why we don't feel it, because this light bulb is right now actually covered with a lot of layers. We see a little bit of dimmed light, but it's not as vivid and open and inspiring. So let's just talk about the soul. You should love God with all your might, with all your soul, with all your words, and put it upon your heart. You should teach them to your children. Children mystically are emotions. It says that we are like chamber, so to speak, of a lot of children. And those children, some are behaved, well behaved, and some are neglected, some are pushed away, some are welcomed, and they're so loud because they don't get their enough attention. We usually are taught not to communicate to our emotions. We have no concept how to communicate to our emotions. Some emotions that drag us down and make us feel heavy and depressed, we kick them out like naughty kids. You know, sit on the couch or do this or do that. The same thing we do to ourselves. And we have those emotions in us, that those wild, so to speak, unbehaved children, they bombard us every so often. And they call out and they make trouble and they knock and they break and they make loud noise. And we are a chamber, we are a storehouse for those unwanted or wanted children, so to speak. Like if you picture yourself on that level, you'll understand all we are just a collection of all different emotions. Some emotions that we like and approve and some that we don't. So all that we want to do is to kick in this love, this inspiration of the soul to all our emotions, to say and to understand. Some of my inner children need that understanding and need a little bit of time and need a little bit of just being next to them. We don't always need to say to our children the same way as to our children, you know, I told you many times, how many times I told you not to do that. We just want our children to be heard. You know, even if I told many times to myself a lot of things, I still want to just hear myself from inside. Let me hear a little bit more. This voice is talking, is saying something. I want to tune in. I want this emotion to find its peace. And all those little emotions that's inside of us, once they find peace, they all generate and shine love that we want to wake up. So we said, teach them to your children, and you should speak to them when you sit in your house. This is when the soul, the real expression of the soul, is when it sits in its realm above. That's a real home. I'm sure you've all heard this beautiful story from Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Chassidus, the movement of Chassidus. He had a chosid, a student, once come to him and asked him, please teach me, what am I missing in my service to God? And he said, you know what, instead of me giving you in words, I'm going to send you to somebody, and you will spend some time with this man. He says, okay, how far is he? He's in such and such village, and his name is, let's say, Binyamin. Go look for Rabbi Binyamin. So he goes, and he finally reaches this little village, and he finds this Rabbi Binyamin. And this Rabbi Binyamin, he says, Rabbi Binyamin, Baal Shem Tov sent Rabbi Binyamin. Who's Rabbi Binyamin? Nobody knows him as Rabbi Binyamin. They know him as Binyamilka, you know, like a nobody cares man, so to speak. So he finally locates him, and he says, you know, I came just to spend time. I came from Baal Shem Tov, and he is very well established man. He is well-to-do man. He is wearing this beautiful coat, and he put together, and all of a sudden he sees this man wearing torn clothes and all in rags, and he says, you from Baal Shem Tov, come with me. You have to come visit my house and tell me what's the latest stories that you could tell me from this amazing teacher. As they walk into the house, all they see is not a house, it's just one room with basically no table, no chair, just a bed that turns into a table and table that turns into a bed, and who knows what conditions he live in. And Baal Shem Tov wants him to learn from that. He spends night, he basically didn't sleep the whole night. He could not fall asleep. All he ate was just hot water and a little bit of bread, which he couldn't chew. It was so hard and so old. So in the morning he said, you know, I had enough. I need to go home. I don't know what I was supposed to learn here. I have no idea what Baal Shem Tov wanted me to learn. And this Rabbi Binyamin decides to escort him, decides to take him in his way. And he said, tell me, how do you live if this was not comfortable for you? So how do you live? He said, oh, the way I live, I have pillows, I have carpets, I have beds, I have blankets, I have most beautiful paintings, chandeliers. I can't explain. Like, I don't know how you live like that. Really? Tell me more about it. What else do you have in your house? Well, I have silver spoons and forks, like china, and he goes on and on. Really? And he says, but tell me, how do you eat? Me? I also have all of that. So how come you didn't take me to the house that you have, where you have it all? No, my dear friend, I have it all in the higher realms. This is where I really live. And he said, aren't we all the student of Baal Shem Tov just traveling? We're here to travel. Look, you traveling, and you somewhat survived in your ways. You somewhat slept, somewhat ate, but the real life is not here. It's up in the higher realms. And that was his lesson. He understood that here is a temporary life. Here we'll learn few lessons, if we understand it was a lesson for us. And really the soul is aiming to go back. There is different explanation that says that the soul first is begging to come here, and once it comes here, it gets so engrossed into materialism or concept or appreciation of this lifestyle, it forgets about where it really belongs. So the concept here is that when you walk, when you sit in your house, that real house for the soul is up there. Here we're only traveling. When you walk on your road, and this is this world, when the soul walks in this world, just walking on the road, when you lie down is once the soul accomplishes its mission in this world and it lies, and when you rise, it's after the soul is coming back. You shall bind them as a sign upon your hand and upon your eyes. It says clearly all our openings on our face. That's sense of smell, sense of taste, sense of hearing and seeing. It actually affects the most our soul. And we should put guards on all those openings. And how do we do that? I'm sure you've seen in the system of spiritual kind of schools where boys and girls are taught. Boys are encouraged not to look whenever they speak to a girl. And some ladies or girls take it offensively. They don't understand, what does that mean? They wouldn't look. They wouldn't look because they don't want to be inclined with evil inclination. That's why they avoid looking, and they just continue their conversation. Generally, boys are educated to watch their gazing at things, at something that is not pure, at something that is not, that could have a negative and pure effect. They are taught to guide it. We are taught to control or to kind of create a right setup, a right environment for what we hear and for what we see and for what we smell and for what we taste or for what we say. Anything to do with our mouth. So all that affects the sensitivity. A lot of people say vegetarian people are very, very aloof, they're very kind of, like butterflies. Some are and some not. There is sensitivity to it. I could relate to it. People, what they eat, it affects them. What they surround themselves, what music they tend to listen to also affects them. Sometimes we need to wake up and to kick in passion. We need to hear a high beat music. Sometimes we need to learn to calm down and to learn to focus. We need to hear classical or relaxed music, and all that affects. So in that sense, they say you should put a guard on between your eyes and on your hands. And this is also, hands again represent emotion. We should learn to be aware of our emotions. And you should write them upon your doorpost. And this is already in our houses. We should know what enters our house and what leaves our house. There is different methods how to control it, and on your gates. Even further, what possibly could come. Like there is a saying that says the good educator or the good parent wouldn't, it's like a good охотник, how do you say? Hunter. Yeah, he does not shoot right at the bird, but he shoots where the bird will be in a couple of seconds. So the same thing with the educator. When you educate today, you know this will lead to certain things, and you know where the child or the student is heading with it. The same thing with us. We know our house is a dwelling place where we could recharge, when we could create a peaceful environment, and everything that enters or leaves has an effect. So, any questions up until now? Yes or no? I'm sure you've heard all these interpretations before. I just want to go quickly and hit the point what actually the purpose of today's class. Prayer is one word. And over here, I find from talking to a lot of ladies, we're turning the page, prayer in one word. And subtitle is neither tools and views, fears, control, wants and don't wants. So when I talk to people, either it's privately or in classes, I realize that basically very likely they express what's in their heart and what they're going through. And pretty much I try to figure how would they pray. So prayers to a lot of people is to express their needs and to express what they want and to communicate to God and to ask. Number one, if you come talking to God or opening your conversation, sensing fear, what if I'm not going to get? What if I'm going to lose? Let's say you're getting a job. You want to offer a prayer a night before, and you would say, I do feel fearful. What if I'm not going to get this job? I don't even know where to look for another job. What if this job that I'm going to get, I'm going to lose? A lot of people are very inclined to be fearful. Some people on outside are very balanced and very in control, so to speak, in a good way. But inside they're bubbling. Inside they're very worried. Worry does not reach God. When you're worried, the gates close right away, and you can't. You're talking from human perspective. We want to open the gates, and we want to communicate to God on His level. I actually didn't ask if there were any questions.
No.
Okay. So, how do we overcome the fear? Very practical tool. Fear about the job, I don't know if this is a practical example. Fear about, let's give a very substantial example. A woman is about to or wants to get divorced, and she is torn to pieces. She knows the good side of the fact that she should get divorced. For example, the house is going to be calm, and for kids it's going to be. That's the only argument that I hear in that setup. But kids are going not hear disagreements and arguments, and it's the best, and I want the best for my children. That's the argument. And on the other hand, she knows, and she's heard before, that knowing that you have little kids, it's a huge responsibility to just base it on your pure want. Am I making the right decision? Am I not? Is it good for their souls? Is it good for my soul? Is it good for the husband's soul? So she's torn to pieces. She doesn't know whether she's making the right decision or not. In order to calm that fear, and that's the tool number one, if you want to overcome fear, you have to create in your mind all the possibilities. Those that you would like to have, and those that you're very, very much fearful of. And you have to say, God, as long as through the process of life I will stay committed to you, and I will see it as a service to you, this possibility, that possibility, the 10th possibility, the 20th possibility, I actually welcome. Because I know from you comes only good, and I know from you only comes a communication to me for my own benefit or for the benefit of my children, or it's a cleansing period in my life, or it's a period that I need to learn a lesson, and I need to know that there's sometimes an answer no, expecting the yes, there is a no, also your answer. I actually understand and I slightly live through some of this possibility. The fear enlarges and increases when we try to kick out one of the possibilities. If we say, that I don't want to enter into my mind, and that comes very much into a picture when people are brainwashed, and I'm not afraid to say that word, think positive, think positive, think positive. And they're like, I have to think only good, and I only have to but life continues, and life has good and not such good experiences. And we as humans have to be prepared for it. And in order for us to conduct our life in the most balanced way, we have to mentally understand there is room for everything, and He runs the world. So, in order to overcome the fear, briefly in your mind, just meditate and say, there is room for everything. If for this particular case, in this particular case, for a woman who is getting divorced, she would say, I'm only a human, and I make human choices. I'm not expected to be an angel or a higher being that knows it all. I'm making human choices, and I'm very pleased with the choices that I'm going to make. Sometimes I'll make mistakes, sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll be pleased, sometimes I'll have to go through the same experience, so I'll learn to make other choices. But as long as I go in process, because for God is not what decisions we make important, is how we go through the process is important. You see, He pre-programmed for us already, pre-planned. A lot of ladies tell me, oh, who is my son going to get married to? Who is my daughter going to get married to? How is she going to have a child? If you would look into sources, you would laugh, and by just understanding 40 days prior to conception, the child is already predestined with whom he is going to get married to. So what's the point of the mother being so worried about who is she or he going to get married to? The point is how we go about dragging in this belief and understanding that God runs the world. If in process we stay calm and rely on Him, this is what He appreciates, and the prayer should help us do that. He actually understands the process is more important for a human being, because the vertex I make the bottom lines, right? So was it clear how to overcome the fear, or wasn't clear? Alina?
Well, it was clear, but you know, it's easy to say that.
And to leave it.
That okay, I you know, take whatever. But I personally, you know, I find it hard to pray. You know, like I know the prayer is you talk to God, and if He wants you to talk to Him. So if you don't talk, He might make something that you want to talk. We all know that people pray more when, God forbid, something happens, and you know, kind of they
Pushed
you
to
know,
pray.
pushed. And so one of the things I'm always kind of fearful of, what if, you know, and I ask Him, please, and I know everything good from Him, but sometimes good is open and it's good, you can see it's nice, and other times you know it's good, but it's painful. And so I just ask, you know, even though I cannot pray, please still don't give me something to be, you know, a reason to, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, the reason to go through pain and the
Yeah.
reason to experience pain, please try to avoid that, right?
Yeah.
That's, in your own words, that's what you offer. Am I right?
Yeah, because, you know, sometimes I don't talk, you know, okay, so what if He's, you know, gonna put me in a position where I don't have a choice?
That's right.
You know?
So the only thing is, very good question, and I think a lot of you have the same question. You, quiet inside of you, you would offer this prayer and you would say, God, everything is nice and beautiful, but I want my life to just be steady and normal. Please, can I have just a free ride over here for a little bit? You see, God looks from His perspective. And the soul looks from another perspective as well. There is a different reality. Soul looks through the program of the whole life cycle and chooses for itself to go through in life through certain difficulties. That's the only reason why it comes from the best place to the horrible place, so to speak, in its own reality. It says, only down there I'm able to fix those things that I was not equipped in the previous life or did not see it was important for me. I actually want to reincarnate and I want to come down here in order to fix it. When we come here, it's like entering a palace. You have to go to a room number 510 and you enter into the first room and you see a huge chandelier and you just stunningly look at it for hours and hours, just adore. But you have to go to room number 510 in this palace and you have a meeting there and you have things to do there. And over here you just got caught. And that's what we do in this world. We get caught in our human understanding of the reality and we do not necessarily recall what we came here for, and we like the comfort on a human level. But the purpose of the soul is not necessarily always comfort. And the purpose of the soul is to come here, number one, to overcome. There is a soul and there is another layer of our ego, most beautiful ego. And this ego has to, the soul has to shine through and break through this ego and to actually make peace with it, with this nature, and say, I know it's cold outside and I know it's hot outside and I know you would like everything beautiful, but God's reality has to shine through. Soul has to shine through. And because of that, you will have certain difficulties. The difficulties will be, because this is the life, this is how life goes. The question is, how prepared are we for it? And that's what daily prayer should prepare us for those waves that we are going to sometimes face. It's not that we always try to tell God, you see, if we waste our time, please God don't send, please God don't send, please God don't send. We're wasting time. All we need to do during this precious time is to gain the energy and ability and tools to be prepared when it hits us. This is the real preparation. Did I answer your question or not?
But isn't it like
Yes.
Marina said, praying, please God don't send this, is like basically asking for sending it, like, you know, in the reverse psychology.
Yeah, it's true. There's certain things that what we are fearful of, what we criticize or judge, we actually attract into our life. And the wisdom behind it, what we don't accept as a unit of God, we have to face it. If we don't do it consciously and willingly, we have to do it, God has to do it by force, and has to force us into that setup that we try to avoid or look down at or criticize. He, so to speak, tells us, let me show you how you're able to do it. And he puts us back there and he says, see, you're able to handle it. So when we are running away from, so to speak, from him, and we say, God, this part of you I appreciate, but that, please, I don't want to see left hand. I only want to see right hand. And God said, but the idea is that you have to accept me all. I'm a whole being here, or creator. And by you, and I'm going to prove to you, because I'm so kind, so to speak, and loving you so much, that you are able to handle it. And he puts us in those scenarios that we're so fearful of, and we have nightmares about, and we don't want, and we pray day and night, please, please, please don't. And he puts us right there. And he says to us, you're totally capable and totally able to pull through. So, does that answer, so to speak? Or, yeah.
No, like it's
It
like
wasn't
a
a
question,
question,
yeah.
It's just a continuation of
Yeah.
explaining it. Was that clear? Yeah? So basically those areas, it's very nice to, if I would sit and teach you, why don't you every morning wake up and say, please God, don't send me A, B, C, D, you know, and on and on. And you know what? Maybe God will listen. initially a prayer would be taken like that, and it could be understood that way. But my job is to prepare you, because of the routine of the prayer and because of the conduct of prayer, for those days that possibly need a little bit more of realization. What does this all stands for? And what is this all for? It's not just about comfort, and it's not just about getting what you want. It's about going through and understanding, going through in life and acquiring certain wisdom and ability to overcome the unexpected scenarios. This what makes me into a master. When I am just asking for regular things and getting it, it's not a spiritual growth, it's not a personal growth, it's just being human. You don't need to understand that you need to avoid uncomfortable things. We are naturally avoiding uncomfortable things. So the idea here is with fear, and I hope it was clear. Control. A lot of women and men, but since we're talking mostly to women here, tend to control. They have their picture of their reality. If a woman got married, she needs to get pregnant. If she's not married, she needs to get married. If a girl is 25, she needs to get married. If I finish the college, I must get a job. If I bought a house, I have to have a job to support that house. So we live in that box, in our reality, and we control it. God is very diplomatic. He says, you control? By all means. I'm going to step out from your reality and wait till you invite me back. So you have a picture, you have a plan, you created a scenario that you would like to live in. Flag into your hands. You could handle it. You could totally do it. And he sits and waits, so to speak. He is diplomatically waiting until we invite him back. And out of devastation, 25 years later, hacking and packing, we kind of come back and say, I wasn't able, on my human level, I wasn't able to pull it, and the job, and the marriage, and this, and that, and, I couldn't do it. So we invite him back in. How do we do it? By recognizing that I created this scenario. Just because it has to be, I decided to believe in it, and there's a lot of movies and systems, secret, etc., that will teach you about it. Visualize, believe in it, boom, get it straight through, you're gonna get it. And yeah, there is a secret to it, within the secret, but I'll tell you, we are believers, and we believe in God, and we would like Him and His energy to be as welcomed, as much welcomed, more than human capabilities. The less human interaction in our life, the more God is going to be in. So the less you'll say, I wish I was able to do it, but I think I wouldn't be able to handle. Inside of you, you say, God, please help me out. Even if you're a professor and you have master degree and you were able to do it, still submit to God. The minute you submit and you constantly say those that have tendency to control and to overpower and to lead and to aggressively conquer, I'm sure you know the personalities that I'm describing here, and the tone of the voice, and just hear the message that you left, and accidentally it got recorded on your voice recorder. Just hear the intonation of your voice, this control and the will and the push. Just, I would say one phrase. Your prayer should be left aside with all the interesting interpretation. Your prayer for half a year should be, God, I don't control anything in this world. You are the only one who is the creator and who runs the world. Once that becomes your second nature, I think you would be able to tune in into life, cycle into seeing and feeling God in your reality. Just continuously repeat that phrase. I let go of the control. I don't control anything. I wish I controlled, but I'm not equipped to control. God, I'll let go and all control I give over to you. And you will see how your life will become easy. You won't, as they say the story, this man walking with his sack, and a friend is offering him a ride, and he says, come on, we're going the same way, I could offer you a ride. No, I'm walking with my sack. Finally, halfway through, he decided to hop in. He hops in, but he's still holding the sack on. The same thing with us. We're like in this world, God runs it. He is the creator. He puts in front of us everything. But we hold the sack. We make sure to show that we do something. This is the low. That's how funny we could look in God's reality. We just let go and see. A lot of people say, what? I have to become just careless person? What does that mean, Miriam? I just have to sit and drink tea all day? Like, what does that mean realistically? So I say to them, you have to function on two different levels. Inside of you, there's always communication to God. I let go of control. I let go of this fear in a certain methods. I submit to God. I wish to welcome those difficult moments in my life as a lesson and as an ability to train my ego and to submit my ego also to God. All of that comes as a training, so to speak. And outside, we do things on a human level. So inside there is one voice and there is one communication, and on outside we take action. We go with our plan day, and we send resumes, and we get jobs. We get interviews. We get what not we need for that day. But you'll see how, because of the premeditation that you process inside of you, so to speak, that prayer in your own words, that you say, my only wish to serve you. I'm maybe not a religious person, but I want to be spiritual. I want to welcome God into my life. I want Him to be my partner, Him to be this generator, so to speak, that moves everything. You'll see how everything will glue on its own. You will walk into the office, you'll meet the right people. You'll come exactly at the right time. You'll notice little miracles, because actually God will be there. When you don't welcome Him and you rely everything upon yourself, those very responsible people, they talk like that. I was raised very responsible, Miriam, don't get me wrong. I know I don't sleep at night until, make sure I wake up in the morning at the right time. I'm very responsible, but does it help you? Does it ease your life? Do you become a peace person that generates love, generates security and peace and harmony? Does things happen in your life? Always look the effect of your behavior. This is the last thing that we're going to. But I think control we went through, and the words, wants and don't wants. That's another point. Wanting passionately, very much, obsessively something. And it could be a good thing. You could say, listen, if I win $1 million, of course I'll donate. What could be wrong? I'll donate to a very religious institution or to very, beneficial cause, etc. I'm not wishing anything bad, but your passion not allowing God to enter, it totally becomes yours. If you don't share your want with God, then you could say, of course I share, I'm going to donate, and that's the portion, but you donating, it's still selfish. When you say, because I have it, and it happened to be that it came to my mind that I would like to give to that organization or to help this family, it just happened as a result of me leading a comfortable life. Nobody is demanding from me, nobody is requiring as a must from me. So that becomes a natural God partner. But when you set condition, I will get and I will give to God, it becomes your reality, it's not God. God wants you to say, I don't know what He has in mind. I will do my part on my limited level, but He also is welcome with His part to it, with His explanation. So all with the wants and don't wants, all I want to say here is as follows, the bottom line. When you want something, let's say you want a child, right? You want to get pregnant, and there's nothing wrong with it. I remember clearly there was one lady when I used to work in the mikveh. She comes and she says, what could be wrong? I'm here, I'm fulfilling this commandment in God's eyes. I'm doing what He wants. And I want a child. I already have one child, and I want a second child. I want. I said, but where is God in this whole picture? You want. It's amazing. A mother should want a child. But did you leave room for Him? Neutral room for Him. Room for an answer no, and room for an answer yes. Just say, God, both yes, I could comprehend and premeditate, and both an answer no, I could also see myself living in that setup. Once you allow a possibility of God to come, then you could wish. When it's purely your passionate wish, only ego is talking at this moment. You're not welcoming God by any form or shape. This could be a great will, but if it's not God there, it becomes 100% not godly at this moment. So all the time we have to observe ourselves. Was the God welcome into the picture? Did I say, God, I submit to your will, and your will could be yes or no, and I totally understand and I'm taking it as a possibility, but please, on a human level, I would like to have a child. And this how the communication with God should start. Not starting from us, starting from Him. He is the source of all, and He is our leader and the creator. And then I come in from my human level. I don't neglect it, I don't push it aside and belittle it. It's also important, but firstly and foremost our ability to communicate to God and open all the possibilities. All that should allow us to become very calm, because you basically open to any possibilities. You're not worried, you're not in discomfort, you are not in control, you are not in passionate want or fearful diswant. You are not bothered by anything. You in your mind welcome all the possibilities. And once you handle all that in such a fashion, inside you generate only peace. It becomes natural. It's not a magic. It doesn't come as a result of a heavenly cloud entering your house. It does, nothing extraordinary happens. You yourself become a maker of that God's reality. Right? Does that make sense so far? I think we're going to open a little bit to discussion because I want to talk to you, not to myself.
You have a question.
Okay.
Can you tell more about praying with your own words versus praying from the book? Regardless of religion, what is stronger, so to speak?
What is stronger? I think stronger is from your own words, because the whole point of a prayer is to kick in the feelings. And sometimes we'll lose that point from praying in a different language or praying in just text, and our mind wanders and we are doing shopping at the supermarket while we're praying. So it's very much important, even if you're following the text, to firstly pray from your own words. Did I answer?
She said thanks, but hopefully I answered it.
Anyone else? No. Anyone else from here? I want to hear a discussion, please.
Yeah, I would like to ask a question about children.
Yes.
Of course, we worry about our children,
Yes.
and sometimes I know, like as a mom, I cannot stop myself to be worried.
Mhm.
If child do not call you, on such a time you always start to think about something bad, not like, oh, child take a car, you think, okay, lots of bad drivers around. So how to stop
The anxiety.
myself? Yes, and tell, what, like, it's very difficult as a mom tell, like, good situation or bad situation, it's very painful.
It is.
But how to stop to think bad and be positive about, like, child safety?
That's right. So, okay, I'll repeat the question. So if a mother worries, right? I have to repeat the question. That's okay. The mother worries, and the mother has difficulty looking or applying this possibility that things bad could happen to a child or good in the same kind of picture. She doesn't want to think, she wants to stay positive. We were all nicely taught to stay positive, right? So the mother begins to worry. I just want to explain, number one, by you worrying, you lose your intuition. You cannot sense the child anymore. Sometimes we feel, my child is going through this, I feel she's okay or he is okay. When we worry, it blocks our intuition. We cannot hear our inner voice. It's like, all we hear is bubbling inside. And we lose a lot of energy. We lose contact with our children at that time. So the benefit of worrying, yeah? You kick in, everything is going to be good, everything is going to be good, the good positive thoughts. But it doesn't help. It wouldn't help you. You still worry. Worry only stops when you actually open. This is a possibility and that is a possibility. I submit to the will of God and I trust in His hands, everything, in His world, everything is going to be for a good reason. Then you stop the worry by that feeling. The child took the car and you kick in these anxiety feelings and you are trained right now, you are tested to become a better believer. This is the only test. And you have to welcome God into the picture. And you have to say, in order for me to learn to avoid fearful reaction or overwhelming reaction of discomfort and similar to that, I have to go through that training. This is life. The whole life is a training process. So as difficult as it is for me, as unusual as it is for me, to process the thoughts of something could happen to the car, to a child, on the road, bad drivers, I just have to be open to it. And I have to see it as a possibility. And my child and me are possibly could go through it. We're not the first one that could be in the accident or could have a car hit from the back or from the side. And we're not the first one who could have, I don't know, some damage done. We are not the first one who could drive in the bad weather. It's a possibility. As well, there is a possibility that everything could go smooth. All of it is a possibility. My only wish, God, that in both of this possibility, I should stay committed to you, recognizing it all comes from you. Once you say that, you should become calm. We just never practice doing that. We are fearful. What if I'm going to process negative thoughts and I'm going to welcome those negative things in my life? Negative attracts negativity and all that.
I was just
Did I
about to
answer?
say that to which extent do we have to specify possibilities?
Just
I mean,
be
can I
you.
just simply say it's all up to you and leave it at that? Because once you say, or somebody can hit you from, I don't particularly feel comfortable saying it aloud.
You could, as long as you feel that you are actually open to some difficult or unwelcomed news, you're open. You submit because God runs the world. You are not the master in here.
Because
He is the master.
going back to university, I remember if I really want something, A in whatever subject, and if I don't say it aloud, it's kind of, possibly could happen. If I'm gonna say it, it's not gonna happen. That happened to me many times.
Because this is your program inside of your mind, subconscious program, and you live by that pattern. If somebody told you, if you say it, this is positive thinking. If you say it, if you don't, this is a pattern you live in. It's possibly you could live within this pattern for the rest of your life, but it's not going to help you overcome the fear. And for some people, anxiety, and for some people, discomfort and nightmares and not able to fall asleep and depression. It evolves. It's not just fear. There's a lot of things that is a cause of this disability to welcome good and bad in life. So it's not that you have to specifically say, of course, a possibility from the front the car could be hit, and from the back, and from the side, and from the top, and from the bottom. No, you don't say that. You just say, I'm open to whatever you decide, because you run the world. And you actually have to feel it, not just say it. You actually have to feel that you submit. You give yourself over to him, and he runs the world. It's something that you need to stay with. It has to kind of stay on your mind level, and then you have to kick in the will to try it. Once you will want to try it, right now it's only theory. Once you will want to try to see if you could overcome that fear or discomfort or overly controlling character trait, you want to work on yourself, and you want to overcome that technique, methods would actually affect. But if it becomes a theory and it's nice to hear, but you know, I live in my pattern and nothing bothers me, it won't do anything. It will just be a nice theory somewhere there. Only for those that are willing to make changes from inside. And the prayer is a perfect time for it.
I can add something. Again, like different people using different techniques, I found very helpful for me personally. Whatever is the situation I'm going through, like especially like some of the hard ones, I just, and when the prayers and thinking and whatever the other things doesn't work, I just I just go through the mantra, God, thank you for me, thank you for letting me go through this, whatever you gave me this. Without, sometimes with a specification of certain things, sometimes without, just, God, thank you for doing this to me. And there are sometimes situations where a normal person wouldn't say, like, you know, but it worked in the most difficult ones. And sometimes I don't believe what I'm saying. It just, I say it's the mantra for a certain period of time, and miraculously, somehow it's all, the situation does not change, it's just your thinking somehow turns around and you feel different.
Yeah. Feel different. This
Yeah.
is the whole, that's the most important part of it. How you feel, how you approach and face the situation. If you are not able to open to certain setup, you are very irritated, and you're very not comfortable, you're very bothered, you're very kind of upset or angry, and you generate that feeling. But once you think, I'm thanking for whatever comes your way, I know you run the world, I'm thankful,
Even if you don't believe it,
you just say it. You say it, you kind of brainwashed yourself,
Yeah.
so to speak,
Yeah.
by being thankful.
See, I can do it on a small day-to-day levels. You know, what helps me is, you know, there's things that people say, you have to figure out what you can change, and then work at it. And the things that you cannot change, just leave them be. And it's little things. You're waiting for a bus, and the bus doesn't come, and you stand there, and where is the bus? It's like it's gonna change when the bus is gonna come. If I'm worried, it's not going to. You know,
It's gonna change your attitude.
yeah, so you just, you know, calm down, and that's it. When it's gonna come, it's gonna come. So on that level,
You could handle.
Yeah.
You see, the point here is, by observing ourselves as a human being, I want to master my human qualities. And by me reacting so immaturely to the bus that is late, if I react to it with irritation or aggravation, then where am I standing? Okay, bus, I could manage. But if my child didn't listen to me, but if I asked my husband something, but if something tremendous, you know, with buses we are checked 10 times, but then we hit the real test. We are prepared slowly, boom, you know, and this is what usually happens. Usually the idea is with the buses we're checked, this is exactly where you're holding, just to remind you, you just got a little bit irritated with the bus, so you know, and he steps out. With another thing, and with the third thing, when a real test comes, we know I'm usually irritated person, and I didn't master it. I didn't overcome. I don't know how to master irritation or aggravation or anger or fear. I don't know what to do. I'm not prepared. I fail, and then I go in circle, and I come to the same test. And that's how life goes. We master our reaction to the situation, and we live in the process.